So without further ado, welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Allison.
Sure.
Certainly sounds like I know some cool stuff, huh?
You sure do.
All right, well, we're going to find out right now. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great to be here. And I am going to dive right in. I'm going to figure out which buttons to press here to share my screen and start talking to you about the 3 easy steps for major gift fundraising. You've come to the right place. Between now and the top of the next hour, we're going to talk about how to ask for major gifts in 3 easy steps. I wanted to start with a little level setting and understanding of who I am and who the Heller Fundraising Group is, so you can know who you are speaking with. And for that, I have just a few slides. We are a company, for-profit business, and at the same time, we do have a mission. We build abundance for our nonprofit clients through customized consulting and training for successful capital campaigns, insightful feasibility studies, and prosperous major gift programs. So, number of our clients, mostly in the New York City area, but we work actually all up and down the East Coast, and at this point around the country. We have a couple clients in Texas, one in California, one in North Dakota, and a few elsewhere. You'll recognize some of these names, I'm sure. This is our current team. It's not everybody. We have 25 people working with us. 6 of us are staff, and then we have about 19 or 20 collaborating consultants. Some of them are pictured here, who work as project leaders for a lot of our assignments. I wanted to give everybody the opportunity, before I get too into the weeds on the content, to grab our free tools. We have one really great tool for major gift fundraising. Actually, all 3 of them work well for major gift fundraising. But if you were to go to our webpage, hellerfundraisinggroup.com/tools, or you can find it in the drop-down menu at the top, you can download our tools. That would be great. And also, Allison mentioned you can reach out to me. My email address is there, peter@hellerfundraisinggroup.com. Feel free to follow up with any questions you may have. So what do? We do feasibility and planning studies for capital campaigns. We help manage the campaigns themselves. We help development offices ramp up and assess their capacity and build even more capacity. And often within that, we help establish major gift programs to interact with individual donors at the highest levels. And just like today, we do a lot of training and coaching. So let's get right into it. I have, over the years, come up with my own personal definitions of major gifts. I don't want to say that this is the way you absolutely have to define it yourself, but I find this works really well. So for today, we're going to define major gifts as gifts from individual donors, a dollar amount that varies. I'm going to get back to that in just a moment. Generally, 20 and sometimes even just 10% of your donors are giving 80 to 90% of your support. And if you look at your current donor metrics at your organization, and you don't have 20% of the donors giving 80% of the support, and that can also include foundation money. I would leave government money out of that. If that's not happening, you definitely have the capacity to increase the individual donor giving level. And I'd say even if that is happening, I've never met a nonprofit that could not increase their giving. I worked at Columbia University for 10 years, along with other things. It's one of the wealthiest organizations in the country and the world, and yet they still have the ability to increase their giving by working even smarter. Major gifts can also exist either with or without a capital campaign. We do a lot of work with nonprofits on their campaigns, either for a new or renovated building, space, or increase of programs or endowment. Inside of any capital campaign, the work is absolutely the same as it is if you build a major gift program without a campaign. And before I go on to the next slide, I just want to talk for a moment about this dollar amount. We encourage every nonprofit, and I'd be interested in seeing it. You can put a comment in the chat if you disagree with this. Be interested to know what you think. We encourage every nonprofit to think of the baseline of the individual major gift donor as $5,000, regardless of the size of your organization. Larger organizations that have a longer history with major gifts, that baseline can go up. But the purpose of having that $5,000 for smaller organizations, and those of you who are, would think of yourselves as smaller, which is also a movable target. But if you think of yourselves as a small organization, generally you want to focus your major gift work on people who you think could give you $5,000 or more. So that's my statement there. So what are the types of fundraising? And I don't mean like, telemarketing and direct mail and all that sort of stuff, but I mean, looking at fundraising between two concepts. One is transactional and the other is transformational. We want to focus major gift fundraising on transformational giving and transformational relationships. So let's just take a quick look at the differences. When you do transactional fundraising, you maybe have a relationship. You may be a board member or a board member of an organization, and they're calling up their friends and saying, hey, I need to raise $5,000 as part of my give get. Will you be one of the people? I know you well. Please help me out, and maybe I'll help out your organization. It's usually done with some sort of pressure, like I just said. There's often also a quid pro quo. Also, like the example I gave you, you help me, I'll help you. The bottom line is you're going to get smaller dollar results with transactional fundraising. Let's look at transformational fundraising. Transformational fundraising is absolutely based on building relationships. You want to switch your mindset to listening to what matters to the donor. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. You want to connect on shared passions. And you want to wait long enough to ask. And we actually advise often not asking the first time you meet somebody, even if it's somebody you know well. We'll again get into that in a few minutes. What a stop and think gift means is that you want to ask for an amount that the person can't just say yes to right away. Now, depending on who the person is, how closely they're connected to you, that stop and think amount could be $25 or more than $25, or it could be more than $2 million. We had a organization we were working with about 5 years ago where they needed an anchor gift for the real estate they were buying, and the executive director called their main prospect, and she committed a $2 million over the phone without even thinking about it. That was not her stop and think level. That's an amazing gift, but it turned out that she and her husband gave $7.8 million. So more work was needed to get to that stop and think amount. Absolutely, you're going to get higher results if you work on transformational fundraising techniques. And that's what we're going to get into here. Want to say one additional thing just to give us all some perspective. So, I mean, some people are actually, maybe all of us were tired of thinking about the pandemic, talking about the pandemic. There was a lot of pain, suffering, and challenge during that time. We're all, in a lot of ways still emerging from it. The thing for me in terms of nonprofit fundraising was that myself our nonprofit clients, their board members, their staff members, their volunteers, all really needed to believe at least 100%. I don't know, can you believe more than 100%? I don't know if it's mathematically possible, but you have to believe 100% that the work you're doing, especially, and even if it has nothing directly to do with helping people through the pandemic, that work is vital for the future of your community, maybe even vital for the future of humanity in some special way. And if you can tap into that, you're going to be unstoppable, both in the energy it takes to get up in the morning and do the hard work you're doing, but also in terms of the excitement and energy that you share with people you have conversations about potential gifts. So you all showed up for something called How to Ask for Major Gifts in 3 Easy Steps. So here it is. Step number 1 is get organized. Step number 2 is schedule your meetings. Step number 3 is meet and ask for the gift. It's very simple. The challenge is in the weeds of exactly what happens in each one of those steps, and we're going to discuss that now. And by the way, this is never a one and done thing. There's always repeating the process. You always have to go back and get even more organized. You're always going to have to schedule meetings, and you're always going to be meeting and asking. So it's a perpetual motion process. So here's what we're going to do for getting organized. This is step 1. I'm going to go through a list of the activities. These are pretty much the main high-level activities, and I'm going to go through these, and then at the end of each one of these 3 steps, I'm going to pause and see what their questions are, so that please, if you have a question while I'm talking, type it in the chat, or feel free to type it in when I get to the end of step 1. Love to know both your questions and any direct experience you have with this process that you might want to share to help all of us. So the thing you have to do first is you need a list of potential donors, and you're going to use this for tracking. As I said before, these are all people who can give $5,000 or more to your organization if they wanted to. It's not guaranteed that they will, but you need a place to just go and look and see who your potential donors are, so you can start planning your process. You want to focus on gifts that will make a difference and set the bar. That's what I was talking about at the $5,000 level. If you want to be really bold and you feel you have a good network, set the bar at $10,000. I would not suggest setting it more than that, because it's just a good number. Don't want to get into more details right now, but here's how we suggest you get organized in this way. So again, if you download our Major Gift Toolkit from our website, you'll get a version of this top prospect report along with instructions on how to use it. So this is a very simple spreadsheet. When we work with nonprofits, we almost always use Google Drive these days to share. Some people want to use other techniques, or platforms, which is fine. But so the first thing you're going to do, I'm going to run you through a few different of the columns here. The first thing you want to do is put the last name and first name of your potential donors. Just allow yourself to brainstorm. People people you can see here. These are friends, donors, foundation, a potential donor, a board member, a local business owner. Brainstorm. Don't rule anybody out before you put the name down. You can always cross it out later. Next, you want to put how that person is connected to you or to other members of the organization or board members. Then ideally, and depending on how confident you feel, put down a target ask amount. Once you start having the conversation, that might change, but it's nice to put down the target ask amount, because it'll help you sort the list in a way. If you've got 3 people who could potentially give you $25,000, they might rise to the top compared to the $5,000 people in terms of the outreach you're going to do. You got to prioritize and triage often. Then there's a column for notes, just a little, thought about what you might be planning to do with that person. The most important columns on this sheet, and this is what makes it a really powerful tool and not just any old Excel or Google Doc, is that you want to organize this list of names, whether it's 5 names or 500 names. Very few people have 500, by the way, so don't worry if you don't. You want to organize it by what we call your next step date. You want to put the people that you're going to engage with in the current month at the top and down from there. So you don't have to look at, let's say you do have 50 names. You don't want to look at all 50 names every time you get into this list. You just want to look at the people who you are going to reach out to this month. And then in this middle column here, the next step, you want to put what the action is you're going to be doing with them. Are you going to send them an email? Are you going to send them are you going to call them to try to get a meeting? Do you have to talk to another person first to find out some information before you're going to do it, etc. After you get your top prospect list together, you want to develop a gift table for your annual or campaign goal. And as I said, remember, these processes are the same whether you're in a capital campaign for a need that's above and beyond your annual fundraising, or you're trying to do this for annual needs. And again, this sample gift table is in our free tool. So if you're interested, we have it. It's in a dynamic format in our spreadsheet. So you can, one column will talk to the next column if you change the numbers around. So this is a gift table. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with this tool. Again, if you feel like putting a comment in the chat of your experience with gift tables, always curious to hear that kind of thing. So this is a gift table for a $500,000 goal. And it could be for a capital campaign for a renovation need or whatever, or it could be, this is what we're trying to raise this fiscal year. And we like to divide the gift levels in this first column into 3 levels: your leadership gifts, major gifts, and community level. They're all vital. No one gift is more important than the other, but in terms of dollars in your bank account, you need to make sure you're going to know where to get those leadership gifts from, rather than starting at the community level first. So in this, and the numbers in each of those levels is going to change when the dollar amount of your campaign changes. If it's a $5 million campaign, you're going to have bigger numbers there. And generally, these 2 columns, the target number of gifts and the prospect needed, they don't change that much. If you have a $5 million campaign, you're still going to hope to get roughly, let's call it 50 to 75 or 80% of your money even from a handful of gifts. So in this particular case, it's 50% from 8 donors. And we generally like to do a multiple in terms of the number of donors times 3 will give you the number of prospects you need to have a fair level of confidence you're going to be able to reach your goal. You can see that's true for the leadership level and the major gift level, but then at the community level, because the gifts are smaller, it's only a multiple of 2. So once you have your prospect list together and you've put together your gift table, and you can see here in this middle column, the number of prospects needed is 150. You can start to do some calibrations on whether you have enough prospects to reach a goal. So if you put together your prospect list of, and in this case, it would include gifts of $1,000 plus, not 5,000. But if you wanted to, I'll say this in two ways. If you want to make sure you have enough prospects to reach this goal, including your $1,000 prospects, you're going to need to have at least 150 names there, and then you're hoping for about is a little over 10% here of the 60,000 on the bottom line. You're going to need additional prospects who are making smaller gifts to get to that goal. So if you put together, you look at your donor database and your prospect list, and you've only got 50 names total, which most people don't, but let's just say for argument's sake, you only have 50 names. You've got a lot of work to do before you can do this $500,000 fundraising ask or campaign. And then finally, just on this table, you can see in these last two columns, you've got the goal and how much each tranche of the prospects is going to bring towards that goal. So once you have your prospect list and your gift table, you need to determine who's going to cultivate and solicit donors. This is really, really important. It's not going to be like, for instance, every board member. It's not going to be every person in your development office if you happen to have a development office. It's not going to be everybody. You need to know who's going to be doing it, and you need to know how much time they have available. When you know how much time they have available, you can then calculate how many meetings the person who's going to be doing this work or the small group of people who are going to be doing it can make per month. This is something that most organizations don't end up doing. This is really, really important. I'm going to show you another, it's our last table for this section, and it's also in that free tools download. I'm going to show you a way to calibrate how much money you can raise based on the metrics of how many meetings you can have per month. So this is what we call the monthly donor meeting metrics. And there's a lot of data here, but don't worry about it. I'm just going to show you quickly that don't worry about year one or year three. Let's just say you're in year two of your major gift program. And as an organization, whether it's one person or two or three people, all together, you're able to meet with 8 people per month. That's that energetic level of activity, 8 people a month. In a year, that's 96 meetings. We're going to be really conservative, and we're going to assume that of those 96, you're only going to ask half of them. That's 48. In 48 of those meetings, you're going to ask. The reason for that we'll also get into in a few minutes is because you're going to be doing that relationship building and cultivation so that you don't just ask the second you see somebody. And of those 96 meetings, you may meet some of those people several times throughout the course of a year. In fact, you're doing your job better if you're meeting with some of them several times. And then of those 48 solicitations where you're asking somebody to make a gift to your organization, 24 of those people are going to say yes. Now, in reality, when you get to the point of asking and you're able to have that conversation, you're going to have more than 24 yeses, but we like to be really conservative when we're plotting out money that you're going to receive. And you can see here that roughly that would net $350,000 for this particular organization. So that's what, $10,000, a little more than $10,000 per ask. So some people it's going to be a really, it's going to be $100,000 ask. For other people, it'll be a $5,000 ask, and it's going to roughly equal $350,000. That's pretty great. You'll notice though that in year one, the amounts are less. As you get to know your donors better and focus on the people who can really make a difference, these numbers go up over time. So I hope you find this as exciting a tool as I do. The last piece of getting organized that is super important, and we kind of give whole webinars on the topic of your story and your case. I'm just going to say one or two sentences about it today. You need to know what you're going to say to your potential donors, and in a way, and this is the key thing, I can't say this more, stress this enough. Please, if you're not listening to anything else, please listen to this. The most important thing is that you figure out legitimately, not by telling a made-up story, legitimately how raising the money you need this year, or raising money you need for a multi-year capital campaign, how that money is going to make the community that you serve stronger in the future. How raising your money is going to make your community stronger in the future. Now, the community you serve could be a small neighborhood in a small town, or you could be an international organization of some kind. I don't care how you define community. That's up to you. You have to define your community. But the key thing is the story of how your community is going to be stronger. Most nonprofits, if they figure that out, the thing that they miss is they start talking about how their nonprofit is going to be stronger with this money. That's okay, but you're really just a vehicle for making your community stronger. That's the point I want to get across. If you can talk about the community being stronger in the future, it's a home run. So that's the end of your getting organized process, step one. I'm going to pause for just a couple moments to see if we have any questions. And Allison, I will turn to you.
We do. So the first one is that somebody had missed how they can access the tools related with the webinar. So could you repeat that, please?
Yes. HellerFundraisingGroup.com. You can go, you'll see the top of the navigation bar, there's something that says something like free resources or fundraising resources, and the tools are there on a drop down, or you can go to HellerFundraisingGroup.com/tools, or you can email me if you get stuck, Peter@HellerFundraisingGroup.com.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, the next question that we have is from Amy Carroll from the artwork of Ruben Hale in West Palm Beach, Florida. And what Amy wants to know is, how do we know about how much a person could afford to donate? So how do you figure out what your prospects are able to provide to the organization?
Yeah, great question, Amy. Thanks for being here. And hello, Florida. So there's a number of dynamics to that. For instance, we use Donor Search, which is a research tool we have a subscription to. We work with that on all of our clients, and we can look up any individual with a home address and see what their past giving to other organizations is, their wealth indicators. It's a good baseline. It's not accurate for everybody and doesn't have everything. It definitely helps. The other two techniques, which are used often in parallel. One is find out who knows them on your board or otherwise, find out what they know. You want to just, you get a sense. And the best technique, honestly, is if you suspect that somebody has the capacity to make a large gift to your organization, see if you can get a meeting and ask them yourself. Sit down with them, find out, ask them questions about themselves, ask them, tell me about your charitable giving. People honestly love to talk about their charitable giving. So I find that works really well. Perhaps one more question for now, and then we'll go on.
Sure. So the next one is from Joe Salamone. He's the executive director of the Long Island Coalition Against Bullying. He wants to know, what are some tips you might share on identifying specific donor prospects?
Thank you, Joe. So I don't mean to keep referring to our free tools as a cop out or anything, but there is a second tool that's called your natural networks, or it's called natural networks. And the reason I mention that is that the best technique that I've seen is to start building your networks through the people you already know. You know, if you're faced with your computer and a blank spreadsheet to list top donors, who would you put down? Who would you on your board might you talk to find out about their network? Who in the community? Like as soon as you get like 3 people on that list, you're beginning to build out a list. We've done this recently with just a couple clients, and it's amazing how the list just builds pretty quickly. One thing I didn't mention on that top prospect report is you can also put a category for what we call connectors. Somebody who may not themselves be one of your top donors, but they know a lot of people in the community, or they may actually be a donor and a connector. So you want to take the time to have this conversation with your donors and board members and even your staff members to find out, like, what are your ideas of who we should talk to? So Allison, I think so that we get through
Peter,
steps.
I just have one more. I don't know if you
Yeah,
want to answer one more real quick.
why not?
This is from Wendy Gennaro. She's the Director of Development from the Queen Center for Progress. And she wants to know, how do you recommend converting event sponsors into major gift donors?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll just give a quick answer. So we're assuming that this is an individual sponsor. I find that a lot of times events don't glue your donors to your organization enough. So I think that there's a number of things you can do. One is to explain the importance of the organization at the event, through the event. A lot of times the events are very, in some ways, transactional, but ask the sponsor for an opportunity to thank them for their sponsorship and to explain how their money has made a difference to your organization, which is like an inroad then to a conversation about the work that you're doing and that stronger future you're going to have for your community. So I love those questions. I'm going to go onward. And again, if you want to email me your questions, if they didn't get answered, I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so this is getting even more exciting. Step 2 is scheduling your meetings. Excuse me, scheduling your meetings. Now, anybody who's done this work at all knows that scheduling your meetings is the hardest part of the 3 steps. Even people who are willing to meet with you are busy. And we all know how busy we are these days. So it's hard, but you have to be persistent. That's all I can say is like, and you have to kind of make it like a fun game. Okay, what can I do to get this person's attention now without being totally annoying? You get to be, a little bit irritating, but not totally annoying. So your goal is to have a face-to-face or a Zoom-to-Zoom meeting. Before the pandemic, we would never recommend anything except face-to-face to ask for a large gift. Of course, happens sometimes over the phone or sometimes in email or Zoom. But right now, I don't want you to meet on Zoom if you can meet face-to-face, but it's perfectly acceptable. The only way to get a meeting is to schedule it first. This is what you have to do to get the meeting. That seems to be the way the universe works. You want to use the phone or email. There's absolutely nothing wrong these days with picking up your phone, cell phone, landline, whatever, and calling somebody. Email is also, of course, great. Sometimes you have to do both. Don't write a letter. I don't know if anybody's writing letters to ask for meetings these days. It rarely works. People misplace letters. You want to maintain your focus with your top prospect report. So like you shouldn't be phoning or emailing people unless they're listed on your report and they're listed in the month that you're actually in. So if people aren't in the month of June 2023, you shouldn't be reaching out to them. You want to write a phone script for yourself. And we're going to go over a very basic sample one. And you want to practice mock phone calls with a colleague. Again, like, these days, really, people are doing email a lot more than phone, but we like to focus on phone as well, because if you can feel comfortable calling somebody on the phone to talk about your organization and ask for a meeting, you're going to knock an email out of the park. If you are making a phone call, don't do it when you're not in the right mood. Do something else. And then finally, always follow the rules for phone calls and the rules for emails. You might ask, what are those? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's what we're going to get into right now. And again, we're going to do the phone calls first and then the emails, because I still believe in phone calls, but I'm fine if you start with an email to any particular donor. When you're calling somebody, you want to state who you are. You want to ask how they are. That gives you a lot of information around whether this is a good time to talk and what's going on. As part of that, you want to ask if it's a good time. You want to state the purpose of your call. In other words, if you identify yourself as calling from XYZ nonprofit, they might immediately think, oh, this is somebody asking me for money. No, you're not here to ask for money. Not at this point, at least. You're there to ask for a meeting. You want to say as little as possible to get a meeting. That doesn't mean, hi, can I have a meeting? But you don't want to go into a long conversation about the purpose of your organization in this phone call or in an email. It's really important. I'm going to say it again. Do not go down a path of a long conversation, either in an email or a phone call, about the purpose of your organization. Headlines only. That's what I was just saying. You do not want to have the meeting on the phone. You want to confirm a time or handle objections. So that was phone calls. Now we're going to do emails, and we're going to look at a template, and we're going to look at what somebody did that didn't work really well, just as a cautionary tale. So first thing with emails, are you sending the email because you're avoiding picking up the phone? If so, back to the rules for phone calls. Is it somebody you know well and you happen to call all the time, and now you need to call them to set up a meeting about asking for money, and you're scared, so you're going to send an email? Call them. Let's assume you are going to send an email. You want to pick a clear, short, and personal subject line. Keep the email short. It's what I was saying before. Your first draft is usually not short enough. We just went over this yesterday with a food warehouse-based nonprofit, and the executive director is just starting his outreach to potential donors. We put together that top prospect report, and he put too much jargon and too much detail about his organization in like the second and third paragraph. We had him take that out and make it much shorter and put it as a PS. So there was some content about some exciting news, but it wasn't distracting from would love to talk to you. You want to start with a friendly phrase. If you know the person, start with a connect the dot explanations. If you don't, actually that's often good for a subject line. If you don't know the person, Joe Jones connection, if that's the person who's connecting you. Jump right into your reason for writing. I'm hoping we can meet to blank. Make it as easy as possible for the person to say yes. In other words, don't say, I'm wondering if you can meet at Tuesday at 1 p.m. at the coffee shop on the corner of blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering, I'm hoping you can meet with me sometime over the next 2 weeks at your convenience. You want to give them an action step. Looking forward to your reply. There's better phrases to use, but something that lets them know you want to hear from them. So here's a generic phone and email script. You will get these slides if you're participating today, so don't worry about like copying anything down. Emphasis on generic, okay? So let's assume this is a a phone call, and then I'll talk about the email version in a minute. So you can see here it says, "Hi, my name is Peter Heller. I'm calling from the Peter Heller nonprofit." Again, optional. This is not a telemarketing call. Joe Jones suggests that I call you. How are you today? Oh, I'm good. What is it you want, Peter? Well, the reason for my call is, we are reaching out to our local community to share the new work we are doing to make such and such even stronger for the people of the community. Joe asked me to reach out to you and a few other people to request a brief meeting to learn your views on our work. You can say some other things, but short and to the point. You're not giving a dissertation on all the programs you have and all the stuff you're doing. And then this part in blue, I really feel is the most important, because what I was saying earlier about transformational fundraising, you want to genuinely develop a relationship. And if you can focus on your genuine desire to listen to what that person thinks about your community and your work, first of all, you're doing something very different than most nonprofits and most people they even talk to in the day who are asking for things from them. But you're saying something like, "I'm hoping we could schedule a brief meeting at your convenience so that I can meet you in person and hear what's important to you in our community, or about such and such an issue, or about the time you spent as a student at our school." And then you pause, you hear what they have to say, and they're like, "Oh, well, all right, I'm willing to do that." And you say, "Great, what might work for you over the next few weeks?" And you do your best to make it as convenient as possible for them, and you follow up by getting some details. And I'm going to pause in a minute to hear questions about this second step. I wanted to show you what one of our clients did in an email a couple years, 2 or 3 years ago, that just completely backfired. And this was an email during a capital campaign for a big building project from a member of the community who was clearly capable of making a gift of at least $100,000 or more. And here's what happened. The top box is the email to the potential donor. It says, "Hi, Gail and Matt. I hope you are continuing to enjoy the summer. Mike and I would love to meet at your convenience to discuss the capital campaign. Can you drop us a note as to sometimes that would work with your schedules? Best, Rhonda." And not surprisingly, they said, now I'm just going to cut to the chase here, "We'd love to get together sometime to catch up, but no need to do that over your organization's business. We would like to make a contribution of $1,000 to the capital campaign. Please send any forms that we need in order to make the gift, and we'll take care of it." This is very much in that transactional fundraising column. Why is it? I'm sure a bunch of you would tell me the answer if we're having a conversation now, but to let you know, it's because they just went right for the jugular on, "Like to meet with you to discuss the capital campaign." Of course, that's what they wanted to do, but you need to genuinely be interested in what they think about your organization and the community you serve, and let the capital campaign or the annual fund come in later. You don't want to pretend that you're not interested in that, and there's a lot of nuances. That's why we often get hired to help people with this, because there's a lot of nuances to how to phrase all this. But the idea is you want to ask them to have a conversation about your community, and when they want to give, that's going to be up to them. So Allison, I do want to finish up at the top of the hour. So 1 or 2 questions on scheduling meetings, and then we'll do the meet the donor and ask part.
Okay, let's see what I have for you here. Okay, so this is Liz Hildebrand. She's the executive director of Queens NAMI. She wants to know, is it smart to use a visual barometer on our website to show our progress with capital campaign? And should we name our donors on this?
Oh, great question, Liz. I don't have the best and last answer. I think, some organizations are getting kind of more into privacy of their donors. Others are more bragging about, who's given. It's really one of those things that you have to suss out what feels right for your individual group and your community. I think it's a great thing to do. I also, I love like thermometers or barometers, like those actual graphics themselves. They're maybe a bit old, but finding if it's an annual fund thing or if it's a bigger like multi-year thing, finding like a fun way to show it graphically, whether like sometimes whether it's a capital campaign, people are showing how much of the building they're going to build is filled up with money. Others I've seen using like an odometer of a car or a speedometer thing. Yeah, I think if it's motivating, do it. One other question, Allison.
Okay, then, so somebody, this is a quick one. What about texting prospects to ask for a meeting instead of calling? This is an anonymous attendee.
Yeah, so I also love that. It really comes down to your relationship. If you have a prior texting relationship, I'd say do it. If it's going to be like, why is this person texting me? I mean, like sometimes I send messages on LinkedIn or WhatsApp or, whatever. You gotta do what works. I think kind of just take a moment to think, okay, would this be weird or would this make sense? And then, use that as your your tool to figure out what works. Okay, I'm going to go on. I'm going to, and again, you will get these slides. I'm going to do my best not to talk too quickly, but we want to know what happens when you meet and ask for the gift. And this is just want to say, this is a high level overview of this. This is a really important skill to develop if you're going to be doing this work, and you're not going to get it the first time. I mean, I remember when I first went and met with a donor the very first time. Again, I was working at Columbia University. I was amazed that I got this job. I had no idea, honestly, like how to do the job, but somehow I got it. And I made myself an entire page of notes on what I was going to say in my meetings when I started. And then, at the end of 10 years, I was just going and meeting with people and saying whatever came to mind because it had become part of my DNA. So, just you're going to need some practice. And there are nuances and there's kind of better ways and other, but there's no like, just do it. You're not going to mess up. So the first thing, and this will help you, quote, not mess up, is you want to write a strategic briefing for yourself, even if it's just you and the donor. If it's two people going to meet with the donor, even more important, but you want to know what you're going to be doing. And if it's two of you going, who's going to be doing what? And we're going to go over that in a little more detail. Not every meeting will be to ask for a gift. This depends on the stages of engagement. We touched on this before, is that sometimes you're going to be meeting people 2 or even 3 times before asking for a gift. So here are the stages of engagement. You're qualifying people, like the question earlier about like, how do I know, whether the person is a good potential donor? And often it's by doing some research and or meeting with them face to face. Then you want to cultivate their interest. You want to build that relationship, and you want to build that relationship until you feel it's the right moment to solicit. You don't want to solicit too early. Once you've asked, you need to close the gift. Once you've closed it, you've got your money in your bank or a payment plan over several years on when the money's going to come in. You want to do your darndest to keep stewarding that donor so that they understand the power of the money they give, and you keep the relationship growing for the future. Sometimes you'll find that of course you're going to resolicit. Sometimes something happens and you're just dropping that person from your portfolio, or you need to defer to a later time. Every meeting should ask for something, and often it's just another meeting. If you can get that first meeting, that's the hardest thing. And engage the person in conversation and say like, geez, this was a really helpful conversation to me. I really appreciate hearing your perspective. I'm hoping we could get together again a couple months from now so that I can update you on our progress, and perhaps we could even discuss your personal giving at that time. So you're setting them up so they know what's coming, but it's like in that first meeting, most of the time people are going to say yes to a second meeting. You want to maintain your focus with your gift table and your case from getting organized. You want to use them with donors. So the case is often a great leave behind if you are able to write, it can be 2 pages on the powerful future of your community based, what your organization is going to do for that. We spend a lot of time and energy helping nonprofits write their cases, but you can do it yourself. Just focus on the community, not on yourselves. And then the gift table, you're perfectly welcome to share that with your donors in a first meeting. Like, part of our planning for the future is figuring out how we're going to secure this money over the next year. I wanted to share with you our plans, and I want to know what you think of these levels of gifts. So, can you think of anybody who might want to give at any of these levels? You can ask all kinds of questions about money. You want to practice mock meetings with a colleague, just like practicing a phone call, because you don't have to rehearse forever. You want to just eventually go and try it, but it's good to like have a few things come out of your mouth before you actually get in the meeting, see what it feels like, kind of correct yourself a bit. And you always want to follow the rules for meetings, and that's what I'm going to go over right now. This is probably the most important thing. Listen as much as you can. We all have a deficit for being listened to. Always be honest. Geez, I got to be honest, I'm a little nervous today because I'm just starting the process of meeting with our donors or community members face to face. It's something I'm really excited about, but if I seem a little nervous, that's why. You want to start your meeting with some casual chit chat to connect. We can go in, you could go into that, but that's, we all know how to do that. If you think about you're having lunch with a friend or something, that's usually how you start. And then you want to use what we call intelligent questions to learn about your prospect. That's how you do as much listening as you can. And you want your questions to be focused on your organization as much as possible, or like I said earlier, on their charitable giving. You've been a donor in our community for so many years. What's your experience of our organization compared to others in your perceptions of it? You can ask anything that comes to mind like that. Now, here's the thing. You might not ask for money in the first meeting, but no matter what, make an ask. If it's not for money, ask for another meeting, for continued dialogue, whatever, but make an ask to keep the conversation and the relationship going. When you're asking for money, and please keep this in mind, I believe this is important. When you're asking for money, ask for a specific amount over a specific time for a specific purpose. I would love to ask you to consider a gift of $10,000 paid by the end of the calendar year for our annual fund. It's very different than saying, I'd love you to support us when you can. Always shut up. It's not a very nice phrase, but always shut up after asking. Once you say that phrase I just said, don't say anything. The onus is on the potential donor to respond. That is going to show you what you have next coming up, how to calculate the conversation for your next steps. You want to state your agreements and next steps out loud. I heard you say that $10,000 is a lot of money, but that you're willing to think about it. I really appreciate that. And I will email you in 2 weeks to find a time for us to talk about it again. So, Allison, we're at the top of the hour. Why don't we take one question and then ask people to kindly email me their other questions. I would encourage everybody, while this is top of mind, while you're really excited about it, write down 3 steps you're going to take and then go back to your desk, or you're probably at your desk, but whatever, go back to your work and take action. Again,
Okay.
we're here to help you if you should need some consulting help. And here's, if you want to scan that QR code, you'll be able to leave a Google review for us, and here's some of our contact info. And I can stay a couple of minutes to answer questions, but I want to thank everybody for participating.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I will throw out this one question from Lois Davidson. She's from First Light Project Farm. How do you feel about parlor meetings using a major giver as a host?
I love them. There's two ways to do them. One is you use it as a fundraising meeting, or you use it as a cultivation informational meeting. I can't decide for you without knowing more, which is better. I love the cultivation ones where you don't ask. You have to have a plan though, and the staffing capacity to follow up with people afterwards.
Okay, terrific. So Peter, that went really quick that hour. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. I'm sure this will drum up many more questions for you. So if you do have any questions for Peter, you do see that his contact information is on the screen. Although I do encourage everybody to reach out to him personally. Sometimes even when you think you may not be able to work with him, he may be able to support you in some capacity. So, this is a really amazing resource for you all that want to raise money. Again, please join the Nonprofit Resource Hub. If you are not yet a nonprofit member, it is free. It takes less than 5 minutes to fill out the application, and you will be able to access all of these great opportunities that we provide to you. Peter, thank you once again. Really, truly appreciate it. And I hope we'll hear from you again one day.
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison, and Nonprofit Resource Hub.
Thank you very much.